Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Andrew Warren, and in this video today, I'm going to be talking about my top 3 stocks to buy right now. And before we continue on into this topic, I just want to say if you enjoy videos like these where I talk about my top stocks, stocks that I'm looking at, stocks that I'm purchasing, and stuff along those lines, then please make sure to smash that like button, drop a like on this video. If we get 200 likes on this video, I'll do another top stocks video and try to focus on ones that I haven't mentioned in this one or the previous top 5 video that I did. So that means it'll give me a chance to look at some other stocks, ones that I'm actually not holding. And also, if you're new here as well, feel free to subscribe. Around 85% of my watch time on this channel actually comes from viewers that aren't subscribed. And plus, I plan on doing more videos like this in the future, so if you're interested, feel free to subscribe. But just to mention a few things before I start off with my number 1 stock choice, keep in mind that none of what I say in this video is to be considered financial advice. This is simply me just sharing my thoughts and opinions about the market and the moves that I'm making as well. And on top of that, the stocks that I have in this list may be a little bit overvalued in some of your perspectives. As we know, many people have their own definitions of a fair value for many of the stocks in the stock market, and there's also a lot of people that disagree with analysts' fair value. So keep that in mind, as there are going to be some stocks that are over the fair value price and some of them that are actually under the fair value as well. And the last thing that I'm going to mention is that the 3 stocks that I list in this video are all major holdings in my portfolio. I actually only own 3 main stocks in this $83,000 portfolio. So keep in mind that that strategy is a little different from the norm. It's a little different from what people recommend the typical investor to do. Typically, what is recommended to an investor is to diversify your portfolio, which basically means you want something like an index fund or an ETF that's similar to an index fund that mirrors the S&P 500 or something like that, similar to VOO. And of course, the main reason major investors encourage diversification is to help defend yourself against your own ignorance. So let's say you made a bad decision on another investment. You invested in a stock that did poorly. So the hope with diversifying is to prevent you from making those mistakes and losing a significant amount of money, to where the diversified option will help you recover some of the money you lost on the other end with other stocks that you have specifically picked. But keep in mind, with my portfolio holding 3 main stocks that are not ETFs, my main goal with this portfolio is to accumulate wealth. Even Warren Buffett once stated that diversification is to protect yourself against ignorance, and there's also the common quote that diversification is for maintaining wealth while concentration is for accumulating wealth. So my main goal and mission with this portfolio is to accumulate wealth and beat the market. And I know that is risky. I realize the risk that I'm taking on, but I have done a tremendous amount of research on these stocks, and I truly have a lot of faith in every single one of them. So that is why I am all in on these 3 stocks with an $83,000 investment. So with that, we're going to start off with my number 1 stock choice. And keep in mind, this number 1 stock choice is not the major holding in my portfolio. It's actually not the stock that I have the most money into, but it is the one that, given all of the research and the potential for the future with their plan, that I think it will perform much better than even the one that I have the majority of my money into, and of course the 3rd stock as well. So starting off, we have Tesla stock, and this is truly one of those stocks that I think will grow exponentially in the long term. And like I mentioned earlier, with my portfolio and concentrating all of my money on 3 stocks, I am looking at these investments in terms of a long-term perspective. I'm talking about 40 years of investing and holding until I finally retire and decide to cash out some money. And like I said previously, Tesla is one of those stocks that is at a high price right now, and it's obviously more than what it's valued at in terms of a fair value. As you can see right here, Tesla is at $731 for the fair value. That's what analysts are saying it's worth. However, I completely disagree. I think there's a lot of stocks in the stock market that analysts tend to undervalue until they finally realize that they can't deny that they were wrong and update that fair value. We've seen this with many stocks previously, and Tesla was at one point at a $279 fair value, and that was near the time of the crash. So Tesla stock was actually, according to analysts, worth about $200 near this bottom right here when it hit 360, and of course it never went below that. But Tesla has always been one of those stocks that has had a poor fair value compared to what it is actually going for in the market. And of course you're going to pay a premium with Tesla stock, but I feel like that is always going to exist in the stock market with some stocks out there like Amazon, Apple stock, Tesla, and of course a few others that are just known as very consistent good stocks. But in my opinion, I'm looking at this in the long-term perspective, and I'm thinking of this stock in terms of me looking back on it 40 years from now. So 40 years from now, I think this is going to be a multi-thousand-dollar stock. It's hard to predict an exact number, but I think at least worst case scenario, even if I do invest in Tesla at the highest points, worst case scenario, I make a little bit over 10% per year. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to grow so much more than that per year. But in my mind, worst case scenario, this stock grows 10% per year, which is the typical stock market growth rate. So I really haven't lost much when it comes to this investment. And the main reason that I chose Tesla stock as my number one choice in comparison to other stocks that I even have a larger holding in, this is one of those stocks that I see the most potential in for the future and for the long term, just in terms of growth of not only the company, but of the stock price as well. If we're purely focusing on the growth of the company, I think this is a tremendous opportunity. The stock price is a little bit less predictable, but at this point right now, Tesla has already laid out their master plan, and the growth of the company is pretty predictable because, as we know, Tesla and Elon Musk do not joke around. When they say they're going to do something, they do it, and the proof is there with the first part of the master plan, in which they have already accomplished those things. So as we've seen, Tesla follows their plan, and they do exactly what they say they're going to do, and that goes along with creating the Roadster to fund all of the other models that came after that, such as the Model S, the Model 3, the Model X, the Model Y, and then we have the Cybertruck coming up, and all of that is thanks to their master plan of starting out with a Roadster, because if they wouldn't have started out with a Roadster, they wouldn't have been able to fund a larger amount of production for cheaper vehicles such as the Model S. And because of the Model S, they were able to do the Model 3, and because of the Model 3, they were able to do the Model X, and then so on up until we have the Cybertruck coming up sometime soon in 2021. So keep in mind, Tesla is an optimization machine. The order of their model lineup and production was optimized perfectly in order to where they could keep producing more vehicles that would fit into their own sectors of the market, while also them contributing to their long-term mission of them being able to produce more vehicles at a cheaper cost to customers, which is what they're attempting with the Cybertruck. And then of course with the funding from the Cybertruck, it will help produce the Tesla Semi, and then of course the Tesla Roadster coming up as well. And then there's the potential of an electric van also coming up, which will be huge for companies that do deliveries and offer services. So Tesla is a company that has a huge focus on optimization and efficiency, and like I've mentioned in previous videos, Tesla at the core is a lithium-ion battery producer. That's what they started out with when it came to Tesla as a vehicle. So they understand and recognize what goes into making the core technology of an electric vehicle. They understand that core technology, unlike any other competition out there, and unlike especially ICE vehicle producers. And as we know, they've been putting tons of money into research and development. They recently acquired other companies such as Hybar Systems and Maxwell Technologies, which have a huge focus on batteries. So Tesla is all about improving their core technology, and then the rest comes after that. And as we know, they hire designers that of course makes vehicles look aesthetically pleasing, but they also make them cheaper to produce, as we know with the Cybertruck. And then of course we have the full self-driving technology coming up as well. This is going to be huge. This is what will really propel Tesla in terms of its stock price in the future, if they are able to maintain the lead in terms of self-driven AI in the future. And this full self-driving technology opens up plenty of other business opportunities for Tesla as well, in which they can basically create their own Uber service. They'll basically put Uber out of business because they can supply themselves with their own cars, and they don't have to hire people to pay to drive people around. So for one thing, they manufacture the product that will be used for that business, and they don't have to hire a driver. So it's extremely cost efficient, meaning it will also be cheaper to customers. And I think that will put out all of these other transport companies such as Uber and Lyft and stuff like that. I think that will put them out of business because they will not be able to compete at Tesla's price. Anyways, these are just a few small aspects of this stock. If I had more time, I would go much more in depth on this stock for sure, but I do have a lot of analysis videos on Tesla stock. I actually have a playlist for that. So if you're just interested in learning more, I have a playlist for categories like Tesla, Elon Musk, SpaceX, and in that category I have a lot of videos where I talk about purchasing Tesla stock and my justification justification for that. So if you would like to get more information about that, feel free to check out those videos. But I truly do think that this is one of those stocks that will see a lot of growth in the long term. And I do think it will be one of those stocks where people look back on it and thought, man, I really thought Tesla was expensive at $900, but I definitely wish I would have bought it back then now. So with that, I'm covering my bases and I'm buying at its current price, and I'm looking at it in terms of the long-term vision. And this is honestly, in my opinion, out of everything in the stock market, this company has the most potential out of anything I'm aware of. And a lot of that is thanks to Elon Musk and his huge focus on optimization and efficiency. When you ensure those two factors, it becomes almost impossible for a company to compete against it. And Elon Musk always has that long-term vision as well. I mean, truly think about it. This is a CEO that has a plan to colonize Mars in our lifetime. If that's not someone that really thinks into things and has a long-term vision, then I don't know what is. Now that I've talked about Tesla stock, I'm going to be moving on to my second choice of stock, and keep in mind that these choices are actually in order in this video. I've done a top 5 video previously, and I stated that those choices weren't in order. However, this video, the stocks are in order, so I do think that's important to keep in mind as well. But also keep in mind that this is simply just my opinion. I'm just some random person on the internet. But moving on to the next stock, which is Microsoft. This is actually the stock that I have most of my money into out of that $83,000. As you can see, Microsoft takes up about 44% of my portfolio, so this is a very significant amount, and about half of my portfolio relies on the performance of this stock. And I think that talking point says something alone about my faith in this stock. I really do think that this will be a great stock to hold for the long term. I mean, if you look at the consistency for Microsoft stock for the past 5 years, we see about a 30 to 60% growth rate, which is absolutely tremendous. For the past 5 years, this chart has grown about 310%, which is absolutely crazy. This is something that you see very rarely in the stock market, and we've only seen it with stocks like Shopify, Amazon, Tesla. So there's very few out here that have this form of consistency in terms of revenue and growth. And that's one of the crazy things that I don't understand when it comes to this stock, because there's so much consistency, and I just don't really see a lot of people talking about this, when of course you see a lot of boomer investors, a lot of older investors that think it is a good option, but I don't see a lot of praise for this stock on YouTube where people do top stock videos and stuff like that. So I do think that this stock deserves more appreciation, and especially when you look at the earnings reports for this one. I mean, let's look at these past earnings. As you can see, Q3 2020 it beat earnings, Q2 it beat earnings, Q1 it beat earnings, Q4 it beat earnings, Q3 it beat earnings, Q2 it beat earnings, and then of course Q1 again in 2019 it beat earnings. So as you can see, Microsoft tends to commonly beat their earnings, and that also causes the stock to grow in price as well. That's not always the case. Sometimes you have a stock that beats earnings and it actually goes down because people were holding the bag until the earnings report, expecting it to spike even higher. So sometimes stocks will go down when there is a positive earnings report, but I think when it's so consistent like it is with Microsoft stock, people have much more confidence in this stock long term. So in my opinion, when I see earnings coming up, I think it's just another opportunity for the share price to grow, especially considering how consistent this stock is. And as you can see, I've put a lot of money into it, so I have to have a lot of faith in this stock for me to put this much money into it. And by the way, very few stock videos that people do on YouTube do they actually have all of the stocks that are in their list in their actual portfolio. So with this video, this is just like pure honesty, because the stocks that I'm telling you about, the top 3 stocks that I've chosen, are the only 3 stocks in my portfolio. And as you know, I have significant holdings in all of them, so I do have to have a lot of faith for not only for me to invest in the stock, but for me to do this video as well. And I feel like that also gives this video a little bit more legitimacy, because the top 3 stocks are not just me just finding some stocks on Robinhood and saying, okay, this is a good buy, and I don't go and buy those stocks for myself. So I feel like with me owning these 3 stocks, then it gets a little bit more credibility. But moving on to the third stock, we have Apple stock. And this was another one of those stocks that I was referencing in the beginning, like with Tesla stock. It's over the fair value. But specifically with Apple stock, I think the fair value is very inaccurate. I think that analysts are just giving it too low of a fair value. $240 is too low in my opinion, and I've been saying this for a while now, and I've said this in my top 5 video, and if you look at the past week, this stock is still continuing to grow regardless of analysts saying that it is too high in price. And for the past months or so, people have been saying Apple stock is too high, I wouldn't buy Apple stock, but as we see, it continues to grow regardless of what everyone's says about it. And in my opinion, the big reason for this recent growth over the past year or so has been because of the release of AirPods. That was such a game changer. Pretty much anyone that has a phone wanted to get AirPods, and it was just a game changer for how you listen to music. No cords at all. You can exercise, do anything you want with those, and it's just so convenient. It's one of those inventions that really changed the game, but it was like a simple solution that hadn't been done until recently with Apple, and they made it very modern looking, convenient. The AirPod case is really nice, and of course with just the Apple culture as well, we have to admit it's an obvious thing. When someone has Apple products, it gives them a little bit more status because Apple products do have status. People with Apple products are commonly seen as having more money or richer, in my opinion. I mean, there's always that joke on Twitter, if someone tweets and it says Twitter for Android, they always get roasted for it. So it's just kind of like that Apple culture that is embedded into society. But keep in mind, with this being my third stock in my top 3, I just want to address this. I have not purchased Apple stock in a pretty long time. If we go to my receipts for my purchases, as you can see, the last time I purchased Apple stock was on January 28th, and I paid a price of about $313. So this is one of those stocks for a while now that I've kind of gone along with that mentality that it is kind of high in price, but I bought into it in January because I knew it would be going higher in the future, especially with the recent iPhone and the AirPod sales as well. So keep in mind, this is one of those stocks that I haven't invested in a few months, but it is one of those that I'm still happy that I'm holding, and I'm going to hold it as long as it keeps performing well for me. And even if there is another crash, I'm definitely going to hold Apple stock because it's one of those that really does hold its value even in a crash, because it barely got under the fair value of $240 in the most recent crash. Even if we look at that, at the very bottom it was at $224, so there was a very short opportunity to get it near fair value. So this is definitely one of those resilient stocks in terms of it dropping in a crash near the fair value. And as you can see, this takes up about 17% of my portfolio. So all in all, I just wanted to share my top 3 stocks. As you can see, here's the proof that I only hold 3 major stocks in my portfolio. As you can see in order, I'll go ahead and change it to equity just so you can see the overall thing. Microsoft, about 37K invested. Tesla, about 32K invested. And then Apple, 14.5K invested. And then the rest are just free stocks that I will eventually sell depending on when they bounce back up to their typical value. Like with Marathon Oil, this is a free stock. I'm just waiting for it to hit near $11 to sell. So this is the proof. These are the only 3 stocks that I have in my portfolio. Aside from the free stocks, I don't count the free stocks because I haven't purchased them with my own money. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you enjoy these top 3, top 5, top 10 types of stock videos, please let me know down in the comment section. Smash that like button. That will certainly let me know as well. And if you would like to begin investing, feel free to use my referral links down in the description below for Robinhood and Webull. And if you sign up with those links, then we'll both get some free stocks like the ones that you see here. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Stay safe out there.